Our gospel reading is John 4:21 through 24. Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth." And our third reading is Romans 12:1 and 2. "I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, on the basis of God's mercy, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable act of worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Today, we begin a new sermon series on worship, why it matters, what it does, and why we do it the way we do it as Presbyterians. Now, it may seem a little bit odd to preach a sermon series on worship, since the people who are most likely to hear it are already pretty invested in worship. I mean, you made it here. You are tuned in. You do not need me to sell you on it. Well, the reason we're doing this grows out of an interesting experience I had recently. You see, I grew up in a charismatic Southern Baptist church in Kansas City, Missouri, where the world-renowned arranger and composer Mark Hayes often led worship from the piano on a Sunday morning. And the pastors wore jeans and sat on stools to preach, and there was no pulpit and no liturgy, and people freely raised their hands in praise as we sang one contemporary song after another, and it was very lively and very vibrant and really a lot of fun. And it was a big jump from that for me to the more traditional worship that one finds in most Presbyterian churches, where it is possible to make it through an entire worship service singing songs that have been written before any of us were born. And where raising hands in the middle of worship will likely get you a few stares. So I had to chuckle when the Presbytery of Northern Kansas asked me to teach a class called Advanced Reformed Worship for several prospective lay pastors this past spring. Me, Sandra, who did not grow up Presbyterian, who somehow managed to never take any classes on Reformed worship, despite attending several mainline seminaries. And you know how when you teach something, you see it in a whole new light? Well, even after planning and leading worship for 18 years, having to teach it made me appreciate worship in the Reformed tradition like never before. And it has also made me even more proud and more grateful to be a Presbyterian. This is a tradition worth preserving and cherishing and handing on. Thank you. Amen, yes. My hope for this series is that whether we are brand new to the Reformed tradition, because that was me once, or we've been worshiping this way for 85 plus years, we might all grow in our understanding and appreciation of what it means to worship God and why it matters how we do it. It doesn't mean any other traditions are wrong or bad, but there are reasons why we do it as we do it here. And so I hope this series will lead to renewal and revitalization, both for us as an entire congregation and also for each of us in our own relationships with Christ. And so first and foremost, worship is about relationship, specifically our relationship with God. It is about remembering who and whose we are. And so whenever I preach or teach about this, I know you've heard me say this before, I always come back to that 2004 movie, 50 First Dates, which is a romantic comedy about a Marine veterinarian named Henry and an art teacher named Lucy who suffers from short-term memory loss. They meet and they fall for each other pretty hard, but because Lucy cannot remember anything from the previous day, Henry has to woo her all over again every day. Eventually, he makes her a videotape to watch every morning as soon as she wakes up so she can relearn who this man is and how important they are to each other. Well, like Lucy, we humans are very prone to amnesia when it comes to God. We need regular and frequent reminders of who God is and what we mean to this God who loves us so much. Come, let us worship and bow down, says the author of Psalm 95. Let us kneel before the Lord, our Maker, for He is our God, and we are the people of His pasture, the sheep of His hand. When I was a young girl, I would occasionally get a little bit mouthy with my mother. Just a little tiny, well, probably a lot. And I don't remember what I said, but on more than one occasion, my mother would look me in the eye and she would say, "Sandra, I am the mother," reminding me for my own good that she was still in charge and that was probably a good thing. In worship, God says to us, "Beloved, I am God. I am God." And we remember in worship that we belong to this God who holds the depths of the earth in His hands, and God is still in charge. Back in the day, young Presbyterians often had to learn the Westminster Shorter Catechism, which is part of our Book of Confessions. This is a classic question and answer. Somebody just stuck out their tongue in the back. Can you believe that? I'm not going to point to anybody. Yeah. It goes all the way back to 1647. So it's been around for a minute. And the first question in that shorter catechism goes like this: what is the chief end of man? And the answer is, man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy God forever. And that is something I think we need to hear more often, that God is not only to be glorified, but enjoyed. Worship is one way we do that. When we worship God, we aren't consumers. We aren't buying anything. We aren't earning anything. We aren't fixing anything. We aren't solving any problems. We're not working really hard. We are just spending quality time with the God who loves us. With that in the back of our minds, in the Reformed tradition, which includes Presbyterians, there is a great deal of purpose and intentionality behind everything we do in worship. It's not just because, well, we've always done it that way. For example, the pulpit, the communion table, and the baptismal font are up front always as visible symbols of the Word and the sacraments. And this stole that I wear around my neck is not in order to make sure that I am color coordinated with the paraments. It is actually a symbol of a towel. It reminds us of the towel that Jesus used to dry the feet of his disciples when he washed them before the Last Supper. So this is a reminder of service, humble service. And one of the intentional things that we hold dear in Reformed worship is our order. We do things in a particular order, and that order is gather, word, sacrament, and send. Those are the 4 pieces. The first step of worship is the act of gathering. Jesus says, "For wherever 2 or more are gathered in my name, there am I with them." Yes, we can absolutely pray on our own and spend time with God on our own, and that's very good thing to do. But there is something very sacred about gathering. God is present when we gather in God's name in a powerful way that simply does not happen when we're alone. So last month was the last concert of the season for the Topeka Symphony Orchestra. It was a whole evening of the music of John Williams, the guy that wrote the music for Star Wars and Jaws and the Harry Potter movies and Catch Me If You Can and just a whole bunch of other wonderful movies. I had season tickets, and I had faithfully attended most of the concerts throughout the year, but this one was different. And it was different in part because it was completely sold out. So instead of lots of empty seats around me, as there sometimes are, the place was packed. And because of that, there was an energy in the room that had not been there in the same way for the other concerts. There were also some annoyances. I kept hearing this weird noise throughout the evening. And yes, I am one of those persons that will turn around and stare during intermission to find out the source of the noise. And when I did that, I realized that the person not behind me, but behind me and 3 seats over, was chomping gum with great passion and vigor for the entire duration of the concert. Now, that is something when you hear the sound of gum during a concert that features the music of John Williams. This was not a quiet, delicate, ladylike chewing. This was open mouth, lip smacking. I wanted to turn around and say, "Hey, if you are going to chew gum so loudly that the rest of us can hear it, could you please at least chew it in time with the music?" You can see the cranky old lady I am going to become. The filter is going to go off, and I'm going to be that person at the concert. Yet looking back, it is still so much better and so much more exciting to listen to the music of John Williams in a concert hall packed with people instead of all by myself, even if a few of the folks were a little lacking in concert etiquette. That is the difference a gathering of people can make. And we will talk some more about what happens as we gather, as we continue our series next week. But for today, I'd like to finish this introductory message with a little glimpse at what the people are doing in worship. When we look at how a church is set up, it is natural to walk in here and think, well, the clergy, the liturgists, and the choir are putting on a show, and you guys are the audience. However, the Danish philosopher Kierkegaard taught that in the theatrical drama of worship, the only audience is God. The people are the actors. The clergy, the liturgists, and the choir, we are the prompters off stage, helping the people with their lines. The word liturgy literally means the work of the people. In the coming weeks, we'll take a closer look at the order of worship, how that shapes us. We'll do a deeper dive into why it matters so much that we worship the way we do and what is distinctive about it. And we'll also do some things to kind of juice up our worship a bit. But for today, please know every single one of you, from the youngest child to the oldest adult adds something to our worship with their presence. With the way you add your voice to the prayers and the songs, the way you offer your hand and your blessing in the passing of the peace, the way you smile as only you can, the whispers and the wiggles and the murmurs, the way you reflect on what you see and hear and allow it to transform you. You're part of something that is changing and shaping those around you. Those of you watching it online have it a little tougher, but if you are participating to the best of your ability, you too are every bit as included. Friends, God, our Maker, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is here, not somewhere far away, but right here, right now, in this very room.